Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about the Invisible Counselor meditation, so stay tuned. The Invisible Counselor meditation was inspired by Napoleon Hill. He writes about it in the book Think and Grow Rich, which if you've seen any of my videos you know is one of my favorite books, or probably my favorite book of all time. I'm going to read to you a little excerpt from this. He says, "Long before I'd ever written a line for publication or endeavored to deliver a speech in public, I followed the habit of reshaping my own character by trying to imitate the 9 men whose lives and life works had been most impressive to me. These 9 men were Emerson, Paine, Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Burbank, Napoleon, Ford, and Carnegie. Every night, over a long period of years, I held an imaginary council meeting with this group whom I called my invisible counselors. The procedure was this. Just before going to sleep at night, I would shut my eyes and see in my imagination this group of men seated with me around my council table. Here I had not only an opportunity to sit among those whom I considered to be great, but I actually dominated the group by serving as a chairman. I had a very definite purpose in indulging my imagination through these nightly meetings. My purpose was to rebuild my own character so it would represent a composite of the characters of my imaginary counselors." Really interesting. Now he goes on to talk more about that in the book, and in it he stresses that he realizes this was imaginary. He didn't think he was actually talking to these people, but he has all sorts of weird experiences that come out of that. And so using that basic structure, I have now adapted a meditation, which of course I didn't make up, but it's essentially the same thing here. And what I do is I will compile a number of different people in my head that will sort of serve as my invisible counselors, and then I have a conversation with them. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the basics of the meditation leading up to it. So first off, let's hit form. Now with form, just like the other meditations, you're going to sit yourself in a comfortable position. I like to put a pillow under just kind of the back end of my rear so that it's pushing me up a little bit. Keep your body in a physical state that is going to keep yourself straight, but not so that you're tensed up, but also not that you're drooping. Kind of maintain yourself a straight position such that you're relaxing everything you don't need to keep your position. Breathing, just kind of have a slow, steady inhale, hold for a few seconds, exhale. Try to do that without thinking. Try to get yourself in a position where you're not straining to breathe. And that's pretty much it on the form element. For timing, this one also doesn't matter too much about the time. If you're very new to the meditation process, pick a much shorter time, 5-10 minutes. If you've been doing this a while, feel free to pick a much longer time. I personally feel like it's hard to get much benefit out of meditating for anything less than like 15 minutes at the bare minimum. My usual meditation time is 30 minutes. I've done as much as like an hour, hour and a half. So just kind of pick what's going to work for you and experiment around with the time a little bit. One of the things that you do want to do with the time is make sure that you're not watching the clock. I like to set the alarm on my phone so that I'm not constantly just looking over thinking, what time is it? What time is it? What time is it? And then you're just always watching the clock. So just kind of set your alarm on there and then forget about it. And then when the alarm goes off, you know it's time to finish the meditation. Lastly, the element here, the mental element, which as we already described, consists of putting together this imaginary council. Now, obviously you don't have to pick the same people that Napoleon Hill had selected, Napoleon and Ford and Carnegie and whoever that was, but you probably want to pick somebody that's relevant to you. As he says in the book, you want to imagine someone that embodies all the characteristics of people that are important to you or represent the things that you want to be or become, or that you think are the ideal. So you can put all those different people into a room in your head and then just kind of discuss things through with them. Now, something I personally do is I will think of a problem before I've started this little exercise, and I will say, okay, how do I do XYZ with my business? And then I sit down and I think about all the people that are coming into this room. I have them all sit down at an imaginary table inside my mind, and then I say, okay, here's this problem with my business or my life or whatever it is. How do I solve this? And then you have this imaginary discussion with all these different people in the council room, and you kind of work it through. Now, one of the things that I like to do personally is pick somebody that I've actually heard in terms of video or audio or in person, just because it's much easier for me to imagine that. Once you do all this, pick out the people that you want. It doesn't have to be a ton of them. Napoleon Hill described a whole bunch of different people. You can pick 2 or 3 if you want, and you can kind of add on people from there, or you can just stick to that. But the key thing here is you're just working through a problem, or you're picking these people's brains in your head for how do you incorporate some of these characteristics that they embody into yourself. And then you just have a conversation and let it go wherever it's going to go. It can provide some very interesting insights. As a simple example, I recently did an invisible counselor meditation where I was sitting down talking to some people, and they started pulling out stuff that I sort of subconsciously knew I needed to be doing, but I was just ignoring it. And so then when I finished up that meditation, I sat down and I wrote it down in my journal. Here's all the things that I should be doing, and why the heck am I not doing this? And I started outlining an action plan to start doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden I was taking steps forward in my business. So that's kind of the end goal of this. And it's not, you're not summoning a demon or doing anything crazy by way of having this imaginary counsel. You're just trying to work through some problems or embrace some of the characteristics that these people have and kind of absorb the way that they're thinking. And that's it. Just get some insights from it. Sometimes cool things happen. Sometimes you're going to see all sorts of new things. Most often you're going to start seeing something that you already knew that you needed to do, but it just becomes more conscious and sort of pops up to the forefront. And that puts you in a position to start taking action on it. This is the Invisible Counselor meditation. So try it out, let me know your thoughts. If you haven't already done this, please check out the resources on the website, which is www.embuffination.com. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is Emotional Embuffination, and make sure you get the notifications. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks. The first thing I do when I finish meditating is I journal, and I use this, My Reality Generator, which is full of guided prompts. It's also full of free journaling, and this will help you to reinforce the concepts that you're working on when you are meditating. So check it out. You can learn more at embuffination.com or myrealitygenerator.com.